Mr. Beast, the most famous YouTuber in the world, a man known for his extreme challenges, massive giveaways, and impossible missions. One day he decided to do something different, something terrifying, something real. The idea was simple: spend 24 hours inside the most haunted abandoned prison in the United States, the Ohio State Penitentiary. This place was not just old, it was cursed. Built in 1896, closed in 1984, this prison had seen death, madness, and unexplained disappearances. Locals say they still hear screams at night, shadows in the windows, and cold winds that whisper names in the dark. Mr. Beast gathered his team: Chandler, Chris, Carl, a few cameramen and tech crew, and set out to make the scariest video of their lives. They arrived in the evening, just before sunset. The building stood like a forgotten monster. Broken windows, rusted gates, vines crawling over stone walls, and silence thick like smoke. The team entered with flashlights and gear, joking, laughing. Exploring the first few hours were uneventful. They filmed cell blocks, the execution chamber, the cafeteria. They found old documents, prisoner records, reports of riots, and one page marked with red ink: missing inmate unexplained. At 8:30 p.m., the first sign came. One of the cameras shut off on its own. They replaced the battery. Still nothing. They brought a second camera. Same thing. The moment it entered Block C, the screen went black. Chris mentioned hearing breathing from the dark corridor behind him. No one was there. They reached a cell with scratched walls and a message written in something faded and dark. It read, "He watches from the dark." At 10 p.m., they split into two groups. Mr. Beast, Chris, and Chandler went down to the basement. Carl and the others went to the top floors. The basement was colder than above, filled with rusting equipment and old torture devices. Chris pointed to a corner where a shadow moved, then vanished. Mr. Beast checked their footage. The shadow was not captured on the upper floor. Carl found a locked door. Yet they heard footsteps above them, slow, heavy walking on a floor that shouldn't exist. He climbed to the roof. The door creaked open, but the roof was empty. Then a voice near his ear whispered, "Go back at 11 p.m. All lights went out. Flashlights flickered. Walkie-talkies hissed with static. One by one, cameras showed shadows at the end of hallways, not walking, just standing. Mr. Beast called everyone to gather in the chapel, an old prayer room in the center of the prison. Everyone came except Robbie, a sound tech. His camera was found near Block D, the death row. The footage showed him walking toward a door, then freezing, turning, and then the video glitched into darkness. They rushed to Block D. He wasn't there, but on his walkie-talkie, a voice said, "He's here at 1 a.m. Doors slammed by themselves." The ground vibrated like footsteps, but too heavy, too slow. The wall clock stopped ticking, stuck at 1:13 across every room. Chris collapsed when they tried to wake him. They saw deep red marks on his arms. He whispered, "He touched me cold, so cold, no eyes, just holes where they should be." At 3 a.m., they tried to escape. The front gate was locked from inside. Then a new message appeared on the wall, freshly written. "You are not done yet," in desperation. They entered the cathedral room, the oldest chamber where prisoners once prayed inside. The temperature dropped. Breath turned to fog. Cameras refused to turn on. Then the voice came deeper than before. "I see you, I remember you, leave one behind." Panic spread. Someone screamed. A figure stood near the old altar, watching, not moving, not breathing. The door opened by itself. They ran outside as the first light of dawn broke through the clouds. They drove away, silent, shaken. None of them spoke for hours. Robbie was never found, but his walkie-talkie still turns on by itself. And every time it does, the same voice comes through. He's still here, and the Ohio State Penitentiary waits for the next visitor who dares to stay the night here. Mr. Beast and his team thought it was over. But something about that night kept pulling them back. Each of them began to feel changes in their daily lives. Chris started hearing tapping on his bedroom window every night at exactly 1:13, the same time the prison clocks had frozen. Carl kept seeing flashes of the chapel room in his dreams, even though he never entered it during the shoot. Chandler reported waking up with scratches on his back that he couldn't explain. And Mr. Beast himself felt like he was being watched every time he stood in front of a camera. Even when he was alone, they decided to meet and discuss the events. They agreed they needed to go back, not to film, not to challenge, but to understand what really happened. They returned to Ohio State Penitentiary 1 week later this time with no crew. No gear, just the four of them and a single flashlight each. The building felt even more lifeless than before. The air heavier, the silence deeper. They entered through the same gate. And as they did, the door slammed shut behind them. Sealing them in with the darkness, they made their way to the chapel where it had all ended. But this time, the altar was gone, replaced by a hole in the ground, deep and black from within. It came the faint sound of breathing, slow, steady, almost mechanical. Suddenly, the flashlights began to dim one by one, until only Mr. Beast's remained, and even that flickered. They heard footsteps from the corridor, the same heavy, deliberate steps they had heard that first night. But now they were getting closer with each passing second. They stood frozen, unable to move. Then a voice came, not from the hole, but from the walls, from above them, below them. Everywhere, you came back. The lights died completely. The cold became unbearable. Breath visible in the pitch dark. The walls began to tremble. Not from an earthquake, but from something beneath the floor, something massive, moving, slowly shifting, turning. Then silence. In that silence, a new sound. A soft weeping like a child lost and alone. It echoed down the halls, drawing them toward cell 13, the oldest cell in the prison, the one rumored to be sealed permanently when they arrived. The cell door was open, though it had been welded shut for decades. Inside, the walls were covered in names scratched by fingernails. Over the years, at the center lay a book, a journal untouched by dust or time. They opened it. It was Robbie's, but the dates went far beyond the day he vanished. Entries continued day after day, week after week, describing the others, describing what they did after they escaped, describing thoughts no one could know. The last entry read they brought him back. Now he won't let them leave again. They dropped the book, but it stayed open, pages flipping on their own, until it stopped on a final page with a single sentence. He's not a ghost. He's the prison. Suddenly the cell door slammed shut. The walls groaned. The lights flashed red, and then total blackness. The team screamed, but no sound escaped their mouths. Only the sound of the wind growing stronger, as if something was inhaling, ready to pull them in. And then they were outside the prison gate, standing in daylight. No memory of how they got there. Their flashlights still in hand. And Robbie's journal nowhere to be found. They never spoke of it again. Never returned. Never filmed another horror challenge. But every October, when the air turns cold, when shadows stretch longer than they should, Mr. Beast receives a letter in handwriting he doesn't recognize. No stamp, no return address, only the words, "You left the door open," and inside is a photo always the same. The altar, the chapel, and standing behind it, 5 shadows, not 4.